Alright, here we go.
Ever since February of 2022, I have been eyeing the series to be the laughingstock in the anime community. As much as I don't want to believe it, I can't see this adaptation being anything but mediocre at best and despised at worst. However, I'm not here to talk trash about a show. I swore to myself that I would never talk badly about a show without having a lesson being taught. Despite my tone and title of this video, I want to take time to appreciate the light novel while also addressing why the adaptation will fall flat. Before we can even begin a discussion,
Let's actually go back to how I actually got here in the first place. The video, The Genre That Keeps On Giving, was an essay on how I saw the slice of life genre as a powerful medium. One of the things I said in the video was how it helped change a stigma of a genre that I always found disgusting. The genre, or I guess trope, is the step-sibling romance idea. The step-sibling genre has amassed a lot of weird looks as the idea of incest is disgusting to many. I do not condone incest, nor would I even think about any one of my family members in that way. That said, I have watched things like Iromanga Sensei, Domestic Girlfriend, and Imotosai Irebai, and of course, thank God, I don't plan to watch Orimo. So, I'm not that Yujin just yet, right guys? Right? Not that bad. But in all seriousness, I somehow tend to gravitate towards these shows with the intention to laugh at them later on. This time was no different, and I found myself reading the manga because of the announcement of the light novel becoming an anime. The anime synopsis and title of the show summarize the whole concept of the show pretty well. It's about a main character's ex becoming his stepsister. That's really all you need to know, and unlike Imotosai Irebai, there is no twist. There is no joke, there is no bait, there is nothing but an actual stepsister who is this guy's ex. To make it even better, the first chapter and scene in the manga is the stepsister trying to seduce the brother. She's naked, comes out of the shower with only a towel covering her body, and despite all of this, I still committed to read it, and I was so committed that I actually started to read the light novel. The promotion of incest while justifying the idea of an intimate relationship with a step-sibling is why so many people will and do hate it. The show's premise and PV showcase everything that people dislike about the generic topic of romantic siblinghood. However, having watched Imotosai Irebai, my curiosity about if this manga/light novel could be good or bad began. Without a doubt, I can personally say that I like the manga, but moreover, I love the light novel. As much as I gave a lighthearted tone to the beginning of this video, and as much as I want to explain myself and the title of this video, I can't help but to spend some time talking about what makes me love this light novel in an actual serious matter. As lackluster and broad as the premise may be, the light novel is not. Each volume has its own message to address, and though it may not be obvious, the afternote showcases the deliberateness in every detail and word that is written. Of course, many novels have themes and specifically place words, but the flow in which Kosuke Kamishiro writes each story is just enough to allow for a perfect sense of intrigue and over-the-top dramatic moments. Highlighted in all of this are topics that impact the characters and leave a sense of character development. The novel doesn't leave room for unnecessary ideas and replaces them with a focused topic that don't feel overbearing. Each topic contains various amounts of depth and nuance to them, ranging from an entire volume focused on the side characters to the idea of being different. These topics may not have been chosen prior to the first volume, but it fits so methodically and provide interesting plot elements that allows readers to be immersed. Taking time out of my day to read the light novel doesn't feel like a chore. That is in part due to the pacing, which is practically perfect for me. One moment I would be kicking my feet up and down on my bed while fanboying about a scene or strip of dialogue, and then I would sit up straight staring intently at the words on the page. That is not to mention the switches in perspective that allow for deeper dives into character motivations and actions. Switching from the calculative stepbrother to his frivolous friend, and then back to the lonely stepsister never felt too much or too little. It was just enough to peer into the head of a character and leave room to understand their internal issues. For example, there's a side character who is seen to be like the stepbrother. We are inclined to agree with this assessment and understand that this character is masked as a background character. However, in the latest volume, we are put into his point of view, which changes how we see him and gives him a sense of relatability to his personality. He's no longer a background character that is just there to be there, but he's an actual character and person who matters in the story. Each character has their own style to them, and although it may be rather subtle, it is noticeable. For example, the stepbrother's thoughts were always cutthroat, while his stepsister's thoughts were questions and inquiries about her situation. To add to that, the flashbacks to their past relationship are crafted in a way that isn't overly cliche, but not too complex. It provides enough information to understand the whole situation, but also not too much to the point where it bores us as a reader. It also recalls the moments in ways that remind us that these events have left an impact on them. This mesh of switching between points of views and complementing them with context is what makes each character so fun to learn about. It is well done and why the dramatic moments stand out so much more. We are invested in these people and begin to understand why they think the way they do. To address the elephant in the room, yes, this light novel at its core is a drama about step-siblings. With that, I cannot hide the fact that it openly talks about romance, or that Volume 7 clearly states, spoilers by the way, that they do like each other. I do not know if the step-siblings in the end will get together or date, but I love these two main characters and their feelings. Their actions and thoughts always tread the line between romantic and the conflict of them being family, and unlike Domestic Girlfriend, the two characters aren't defined by lust, nor do they throw their thoughts of being family away. They are well aware of the line, and the light novel makes it clear in every volume that they are treading it. There are so many ways out, yet Kamishiro makes sure that the questions of these two feelings is unknown and if they'll actually act upon it. Well, that actually might be a bit wrong, but you get my point. With that said, the two are still step-siblings, and erotic and lewd scenes are still in the light novel. I'm just saying that as much as it is romanticizing siblinghood, it is not as insane as Domestic Girlfriend and doesn't hide its intentions. These characters understand and care for their parents. They do not want to ruin their happiness, nor do they know how to deal with this lingering romantic feeling. The step-siblings are not mindless and stupid. They are smart but still naive. Again, they are still horny little kids who just got out of middle school. And for those wondering, would this light novel succeed without using the step-sibling genre, or would I hate it if it didn't use step-siblings? This is important to ask because it questions whether or not the same idea could be presented in a way that isn't promoting incest. Despite its importance, this question is impossible to answer based on the fact that you can't make a duplicate thing if you remove a core part of what makes it what it is. Okay, nice try, but first of all, I don't know why I put this in the script because Overwatch 2 is a game and not a show, and whether it's the same as Overwatch 1 is kind of up for debate. But okay, let me clarify then. You can't simply remove an entire genre from a show and think it would be the same. It's like taking out the superhero part of My Hero Academia and saying that there's a show like that. Oh, well, I guess that counts. I guess I don't know, but all jokes aside, I can't answer this question truthfully. However, I can entertain the question and pretend that this what-if scenario did come true. If there was an identical light novel, but without the step-sibling aspect, would I enjoy it more or less? To answer that question, I believe that without the step-sibling idea implemented into the light novel, I would like the novel a bit less. Taking into account that the amount of drama and the tension in the relationship is still the same, I would say that I would like them equally, but a tiny bias towards the original work. Now, before you can call me siscon, brocon, incest promoter, Alabama lover, base, cringe, whatever, let me explain. I actually like the original work more because of the subconscious thought that they know that they are step-siblings. Yes, the tension is there, but the ideas and values being on the line and the understanding of their values and the conflicting ideas that they have is more interesting than if there wasn't. To clarify, I'm not saying watching some fucked up shit is cool. I'm saying that testing the morals of these characters and seeing their motivations cultivate into their choices are the key points in why the tension is unique. You could argue against me by saying that I said that theoretically these shows are the same, but I think that these ideas is only seen with the light novel with Kamashiro's exact concept in mind. But if I do play by fair rules, the answer that two pieces of work would be the same is pretty boring, so let me off the hook this one time. Now, let's get back to talking about the light novel. With me finishing the 7th volume, which I would consider just the prologue, I have no doubt in my mind that I will continue to keep up with the novel. This volume may not be my favorite, but it is the volume that encompasses everything that I love about the characters and plot. The volume was a step forward for both the siblings and introduces a very pronounced idea about other relationships. If what you heard about this light novel sounds interesting, this is a spoiler warning for volume 7 of the light novel, so please skip to this timestamp if you don't want to get spoiled. Volume 7 is incredible, but something that was unexpected. With the classic culture festival trope underway, you would expect romantic implications and a big step forward for Mizuto and Yume's relationship. This culture festival did not showcase a large amount of that. In fact, Mizuto and Isana's relationship was put in higher regard. Though it was said that Mizuto's actions were for Yume, his dialogue with Isana is very interesting. In the volume, Mizuto states that maybe he should have said yes to Asana's confession, and that things would have been better if he did. It questions how much Mizuto regrets holding Aya in his heart. With that, the wall that Yume and Mizuto set up still feels real, unlike other volumes where it felt as though it was slowly breaking away. Yume's step to becoming someone different and Mizuto's acceptance of being who he is questions what their relationship will become. This conflict between hating each other as ex and loving each other as brothers and sisters, and dealing with themselves is showcased so well in this volume. Along with cuts to different parties and some progression of the plot, the volume feels refined. With the two side characters becoming more complete than ever, and the dissonance felt with Yume and Mizuto, it feels so off-putting and tense, yet beautiful and accepting. They slowly come to understand each other bit by bit while seeing each other change. Through different parties, we see how Yume is perceived by others and who each character really is. Yume, in an attempt to make Mizuto love her new self, takes on a character development arc in this volume, while Mizuto takes time to understand his own feelings. In the end, these characters are just beginning to understand themselves, which makes previous volumes act as a prologue for what is to come. That is what's so interesting and why this volume stands out to me. Summarizing the entire light novel is difficult, but explaining why this specific volume is good hopefully showcases why I find this amazing.
With my feelings with the upcoming series out of the way, what is the point of this title and about this video in general? Well, it's to showcase that there is depth in every work despite the genre that it's in. I'm not here to convince you to watch a show, but more or less understand it from another point of view. The core premise of this video is to dive deeper into what makes an adaptation good in my eyes, and additionally, why I think this show is going to be hated. I want to predict that a reason why this show will be hated is due to a mixture of bad adaptation and the genre. And to make my life easier and yours, let me finally introduce the name of this show.
The anime that I'm talking about is a show coming out on July 6th. Mamahaha no Suguro ga Motokano Data, or known as My Step-Sibling is My Ex-Girlfriend. We've already tackled the genre, and we don't really need to explain why incest is a controversial genre. However, what does make a good or bad adaptation? Furthermore, why do I speculate that Mamahaha will be a bad one? Before we can answer these questions, we need to understand what an adaptation is and what makes one good. To do this, we'll be using certain animes that display specific concepts that I want to talk about. Many anime are adaptations, and for good reason. Making an original show is a lot of work. From production to even pacing issues, original works are hard to make. Despite that, adapting a light novel or manga can be difficult too. Adaptations can be done well or terribly, and many people have an idea of what they want to see from certain adaptations. This can vary depending on what the original source is and contains. To me, a good adaptation must understand that the source material and that the anime will not be the same. This idea has a lot of nuance to it, but to make it digestible, I will split this concept into 3 ideas. Of course, these concepts will have counter-arguments, and I won't be able to touch on all aspects of these arguments, but I will try to make my best to make a broad claim that encompasses everything. The first idea is to reorganize the source material so that it better suits the anime format. People tend to see this format as 20-minute long episodes consisting of 12 to 25 episodes in each season. However, anime is an audiovisual art form. Any and all adaptation should account for this idea. Many enjoy anime purely because it is an audiovisual medium. When reading a manga, the creator is unable to produce music or sounds that he or she envisions. An audiovisual medium is supposed to be more interactive and realistic in the sense that there is motion and sound. Animation and sound design are key parts of what makes an adaptation good. Furthermore, the adaptation must be able to create a suitable pacing for the viewer despite what the source material may point towards. A light novel can be methodical and slow, and that may work for some works, but in other cases, it might not. Not everything can be treated the same. One could easily chug through multiple chapters of a manga, but have problems watching more than 3 episodes in an anime. Reading an hour's worth of chapters may not be the same as an hour's worth of episodes. One could easily finish a manga in a few hours, but not finish an entire season in the same amount of time. The development of these characters should feel real and not as though you're waiting for the next dose of copium. To put this into perspective, I'm going to use Karakai Hozu no Tagagi-san as an example. For those who've never seen or read Karakai Hozu no Tagagi-san, it's basically about a girl named Tagagi teasing her classmate and deskmate Nishikata. The anime is essentially one of the many shows that feels as though it will never get a conclusive ending, nor will it actually go anywhere. For the most part, that is true. Many people love anime because of its continuous moving plot with dynamic character developments. Karakai Hozu no Tagagi-san is nothing like this, and many could say that the anime and manga are practically the same. This is true, but looking beneath the surface, you can actually find some of my ideas planted inside of Tagagi-san. First off, a manga can't hire VA Rei Takahashi plus up and Yuki Kanji plus up as the main leads, nor can they have Rei Takahashi sing 20 different EDs in the span of 3 seasons. I'm not an animation expert either, but you can't say that this doesn't make this panel much more enjoyable. Now remember when I said that this anime is not different from the manga? Well, that's not necessarily true. The anime puts around 3 chapters into a single episode of Tagagi-san, while also skipping certain chapters as well. The anime can easily make a single chapter 1 episode, but it doesn't. The creators understand how quick-paced the manga is, and how some chapters aren't needed in telling this story. The anime strays away from the never-ending cycle of the same thing over and over again by setting its own pace and story. They do this by reorganizing the chapters and even making entirely new scenes. Tagagi is an anime that not many people would enjoy, but for those who do, it brings a satisfying feeling. The anime may not be the best, but it clearly demonstrates that the adaptation was carefully made with considerations to make a better experience for the viewer. I personally love Tagagi as an adaptation, and this concept of reorganization of the source material is one of the reasons why. This is not a surefire way for an adaptation to go smoothly, but a factor that should be considered. However, there are still good anime that don't play on this concept. In this case, they could be taking a step forward and making strides to be innovative. Innovation is more than just creating a brand new plot, but can be less grand than creating the best show ever. The easiest way to look at it is through the shonen lens. Take for example Ufotable's Demon Slayer. Their animation is undeniably high quality. Ufotable took a manga and didn't just animate it, but took animation a step further. That small leap forward has, as popular YouTuber Giga title puts it, set a new standard. Of course, watch this video for more context in his exact words. Getting back on track, a show that may be controversial for being thematically and not thematically heavy, This show took strides to be more than just a rehash of the manga. It became one of the standout adaptations that innovated anime through animation. Obviously, it didn't make all studios increase their anime quality, but it did show the community what studios can be capable of. All anime can be innovative, but adaptations have a core reference to play off of. Without having to make a story from scratch, adaptations can take a leap forward and do something interesting. Innovation doesn't mean you have to change a whole industry. You can innovate the source material just by adding new scenes, new cinematography, or anything else that changes how the original source was looked at. Takagi-san innovated the manga because it created actual movement in the plot just by creating completely original scenes. However, an easier way to talk about this is through Science Saru's Heike Monogatari and how it's adapted Heike Monogatari.
As a person who actually didn't read the Japanese classic, I'm gonna bring on someone who actually has read and watched Heike Monogatari. And so what the fuck? Hey,
Out of here!
hey, fuck you!
Haha, bitches! Thought you saw the last of me? Well, here I am, Japanese minor, and I'm here to talk about, well, Heike Monogatari, as well as, or also known as the Tale of Heike, as well as its anime adaptation by Science Saru and Naoki Yamada. Now, as you might tell, I'm a little excited, so let's go into some rules first. Rule 1. Well, there are going to be spoilers here, obviously, for both the anime and the classic. Secondly, if you haven't watched or read any of these, well, do yourself a fucking favor and, well, watch and read them. Screw whatever the fuck Kevin's talking about here. Something about step siblings? Boring. I mean, come on, right? Let me spend like an hour or something just talking about this entire show. It's honestly a masterpiece of fiction. Kevin, what are you doing here? Is that a gun? Ah! Alright, so I have 10 minutes, so let's briefly go over Heike Monogatari, shall we? This Japanese classical epic is actually based on real history in Japan that dates all the way back in the late 12th century after the Genpei War, which was basically a civil war between two huge rival clans during the Heian period. I say basically, but the timeline, context, and historical figures before, during, and after are complicated and lengthy. So lengthy that I might just save this for a rainier day. Additionally, Heike is a very Buddhist piece, by which I mean it tells of Buddhist teachings and conclusions in the story, like the transience of life and the need to rid oneself of vices. This is also an incredibly famous tale in Japan, as I mentioned before. So, I'm saying that unless you took Japanese studies, lived in Japan, read Japanese history, or are a weeb like me, you probably don't even know what this is. Basically, it's their version of Shakespeare, but it's actually cool. Fuck Eurocentrism. Insert gun here. So, how'd Science Saru adapt it? Well, in my opinion, incredible as an anime. But let's first talk about how the anime reorganized itself, because, trust me, the written form and the anime form are quite different in interesting ways, and showcases why adaptations are both hard, but incredibly worthwhile when done right. In Heike Monogatari, the epic recounts a vast amount of events and a number of different perspectives. It tells us about the context before the introduction of our characters, the deaths of our characters, the war itself, and the final conclusion to the whole thing. Some characters get a lot of spotlight, while others appear for maybe one chapter. It tells themes and messages that are both telling, but sometimes are outdated or preachy, which is fine for its time and its context. However, it is definitely not a story you would typically go back to read like you would a novel. Unless you're into that, I won't judge. So, with these challenges, how does the anime organize this piece? Well, in very interesting and creative ways, as I kinda hinted at. The anime introduces a character named Biwa, who the audience follows throughout a majority of the anime. She is an integral part of the anime, to the point where a viewer might be lost without her. She expresses emotions in the story, and feels like a spectator, since as a little girl with no real power, she cannot affect the events in the story. So she's an anchor in which we can position ourselves and our thoughts in the story, reflecting on Biwa's emotions, perceptions, and thoughts on a given event. Now, here's where I pull the rug from under you. Biwa, this all-encompassing character whose very absence would make viewing this complicated anime very hard and difficult to connect to, does not exist in the original work. There is no equivalent character to Biwa other than yourself or a narrator. There is no anchor in the original story because it's not necessary. You read and think at your own pace, and the words are left to interpretation,
or it's a tale told orally in song. But in an anime, with visual pieces and audio cues, with beautiful backdrops and settings to force viewers to keep their eyes glued to the screen, or dialogue and actions to pay attention to instead of escaping into your mind palace, Biwa is integral. Science Saru saw the possible problems in adapting an epic work spanning years and perspectives, and made the brilliant decision to add a character with the medium of anime in mind. That's how simple yet impactful an addition or removal can do to an adaptation. That's not the only thing they changed either. No. They removed events that were unnecessary for the story they wanted to make. They took out additions made in the original to make the plot feel more digestible to work through. They made certain characters and scenes with extra attention to hammer in ideas and themes that, while not different, are definitely a more modern take on a story like this, and very much a Naoki Yamada and Reiko Yoshida type of beat. In the original, the main theme is literally told to you at the beginning. This first line has multiple translations, but the theme is basically the temple bells echo the impermanence of all things, translated by Fuki wo Yanaka Uramatsu. The anime repeats this line, actually, in the ending. But overall, themes and meanings of the anime are a bit different and more innovative. For the anime, it falls along the lines of the tragedy of loss and war, the despair and helplessness of people unable to help or solve anything, the value of prayer and peace, and the ability to let go and pass on your story. I also want to mention the music. The OST, OP, and ED are just amazing. The anime adds traditional music to amplify important events in the story. I absolutely love the OP especially and its visuals. Hikari Toki, translated roughly as Time to Shine by Hitsuji Bungaku, nails the lyrics and calls upon nostalgic and longful tones. Biwa looking through all the war and people she met solidifies her memories and feelings towards them. That really makes the story more personal than the original. Speaking of personal, we also get to connect to and go deeper into certain characters like Shigemori, who in the original represents filial piety and is just there to stop his father and die. In the original, he has presence, but relatively not a lot of it since the story is so long and spans multiple perspectives. But in the anime, his presence is so much more palpable. We understand his motives, his past, his impact on those around him, which makes his life and family so much more tragic. Both works are incredible in their own right. For the anime specifically, it showcases a masterclass ability to not only understand the work and the medium it's being built for, but also the innovations and creative freedoms to make decisions that empower the original work. That's the beauty, and by extension, hardship that comes with adaptations. Understand that context and origins, and you'll find yourself seeing deeper into media and why certain decisions are made. Change can be good. In adaptations, by no means is it automatically a bad thing. Look at Girls of Panzer, and of course, Heike Monogatari, in which the anime adaptation strengthened the original work and elevated the overall story they wanted to tell. I know people joke or even have serious discussions about why an adaptation is bad, but it's not always just because the show did something different. They made that choice, and you have to understand why and how. That doesn't justify it, but it makes the issue more complicated than it's different from the original. Ask yourself, if an adaptation changes or innovates an idea from the original and stays faithful and respectful of its source material, then is that a bad thing? No! What? Of course not! If an anime is one-to-one with a manga, what's the fucking point? Perhaps the real issue is the adaptation and how it extends themes or ideas, because sometimes adaptations can feel surface level to the original and doesn't actually understand or work on what made the original so compelling. Or they could extend themes and ideas so far out that it falls off the cliff it was built on. And I believe these ideas might go into Kevin's fear about the adaptations of Mamahaha. So, it's back to you, Kevin.
Thanks, Brian, and of course, now you can see that innovation can take many forms, and in the case of Heike Monogatari, it put a certain focus to enable the aspect of anime that were also mentioned previously. It not only reorganized, but added and changed aspects of the classic. It took another step forward to create something expressive. This ability is what allows an anime to transcend from just a reiteration from a light novel or manga. This feeling of experiencing new scenes, animation, and events allows for a better adaptation. However, good adaptations sometimes never actually reorganize or change anything. In that case, understanding how light novels and manga translate into anime is important. My third concept is the assessment of how certain ideas within light novels and mangas are sufficient enough to be adapted. That idea may sound counterintuitive when comparing it to my other points, but allow me to explain. Some mangakas and artists already make manga and light novels that are extremely nice to adapt. The ideas I mentioned before don't necessarily have to be done when the author and mangaka have perfected it for both their work and anime. The translation of how ideas are put on paper can be similar to when put on a screen. This could be deliberately made or coincidental. This doesn't mean that books should be made a certain way, it just means that some are written in a way that helps this process of adaptation. These adaptations are usually one-to-one with their original source. There really isn't much to comment on this idea, as it seems pretty self-explanatory. Let's take a look at Hyoka and Horimiya. All of these were amazing adaptations with amazing authors who made amazing parenting works. Both are exceptional novels/mangas and have been greatly received. Hyoka's writing in this novel is very distinct. From the characters to the environments, Yonezawa's writing creates a feeling that is replicated in the anime. Yonezawa's ability to make clear and easily seen arcs allows for the anime to have a clear idea of how to animate and who should voice act these characters. Hyoka paces itself through narration, in addition to movement. When Orki is monologuing, it's always for the movement of the plot, or there's always something engaging happening. I mean, it's amazing when I read the light novel and envision the anime scene. Even though one of the volumes of Hyoka wasn't adapted into anime, it was in manga form. The manga was drawn exactly how I thought it was, and reading it with the OST made it feel like an anime-like experience. The same could be said about Horimiya. Horimiya's manga and anime are exactly one-to-one. If I remember correctly, it is adapted in exact chapter order. I love Horimiya as a manga, and the anime was much of the same. There was no need for more, as the manga had already done enough as a source material. Granted, I wished it changed some bits and pieces, the anime was successful in creating a popular adaptation. Unfortunately, not all source material can be successful in their transformation into anime. Though I haven't finished or even read Record of Ragnarok, I do have evidence to believe that it was a disappointing adaptation. For those who actually like Records of Ragnarok, please don't take offense to what I said. The show itself may have been good, but objectively through other people, it has flopped as an adaptation. I mean, look, I have seen my fair bit of shitty mal reviews and stupid ratings on great anime, and I don't ever like judging an anime based on these things, but it just goes to show that the show is not the best. So let me allow someone with more knowledge to talk about this show as a bad adaptation. Unfortunately, Un's gone, so I'm gonna have to read his part, but I told him to write me something, and this is what he gave me, so sit in and listen. When I think of Rags of Ragnarok as a bad adaptation, I don't think of it as a bad anime inherently. When I watched it for the first time, I had fun recognizing the scenes in the manga and seeing how it was brought to life in animation. But that's the issue. I was comparing it to the source material and how I imagined the scene while reading it. When I think of a bad adaptation, I see it more as the execution of the concept. It's easy to bring up animation style or quality and use it as a crutch to say that it's a bad adaptation for how it did not capture the manga style. Yes, that can be one of the reasons, but I don't think it should hold that much weight as it does. In Records of Ragnarok, a crowd's favorite fight is one between Adam and Zeus. Adam is portrayed as the father of all humanity who stood up against the gods, and Zeus is shown as the leader of all gods. The stakes are high since humanity just lost their first fight. In the most basic sense, yes, this literally is an all-you-can-eat buffet of slugfest and fist-eating contests. But the reason why I loved the fight in the first place was that it made you attached to Adam and showed his tendency to fight to the bitter end. In the adaptation, it did not feel that way. While it was fun to watch, it was more of a spectacle of a fight than a fight for survival. There were shot compositions that I felt were missed opportunities, and some of Adam's best lines were cut off or reworded. And the final slugging between Adam and Zeus provided no impact or weight behind each of their punches. While I could go on about Records of Ragnarok, I feel like the main takeaway from this is that while this is a bad adaptation, it still could be enjoyed. And the reason why it's a bad adaptation in the first place for me is that it did not capture what the source material had. Though they aren't the same whatsoever, I think Mamahaha will fail as an adaptation just as Record of Ragnarok did. Though Mamahaha has a few expectations to be great, the show is not on the best footing. I mean, who would blame someone for hating a show that is filled with mediocrity? I wouldn't blame anyone, and I understand that this anime may be controversial. In total honesty, I just want to justify myself for liking a light novel that is weird by having a good adaptation as a weapon. Again, I'm not supporting incest, I just want a piece of work I like to be on par with its parent source. I see the potential Mamahaha has to be one of the greatest underdog anime series I've known. The light novel was so captivating and introduced really unique ideas that I want to see explored in anime. Like unstated before, a bad adaptation is one with terrible concept execution. I'm comparing and using the light novel as a foundation for these concepts and not as a replica. These themes and motifs set by the novel should be executed in a representative way and not just with no thought, no work mindset. Furthermore, being a good anime can really set a precedent that any and all genres can make meaningful works. Anime is just one of those special mediums that can portray expectations and showcase how amazing it is. If you've seen Brian's passion for Girls on Panzer and how he was able to showcase its power to be a product of anime, then I hope you understand why I want this adaptation to succeed. It's nothing special on the surface, but it's cool and something only anime can make. To prove this concept, the first step is to make Mamahaha a good show. Unfortunately, I see a lot of problems. Mamahaha, as great of a light novel it is, has some issues. Remember how I talked about how some anime are one-to-one with their source material? Well, I'm afraid that Mamahaha will fall into this trap of just copying the light novel. The light novel's translation into animation can be done, but there is one caveat. Mamahaha has to deal with the switching POVs that are utilized throughout the novel. Obviously, there are other aspects, but this is one of the major issues that I see. Switching the POVs of the characters is not new by any means and can be done in animation. Not only does Mamahaha have the ability to reference the light novel and manga, but can also look at other shows to see how to pace a show with multiple leads. The manga has done an excellent job at meshing these two characters' perspectives in a way that isn't very jarring, so the adaptation should be in good hands. Looking back on it, I think the earlier parts won't have any issues with showcasing these characters' mindsets. However, the long term might look different. Take a look, for example, a situation where you have multiple characters at different places having dialogues linking to each other. My fear is not how smooth the transitions will be, but the pacing it will put. In the span of 10 pages, there are 3 different perspectives. Pacing is doable, but there could be problems where this becomes annoying. Let's be generous and say that 10 pages are 10 minutes. From this viewpoint, you have spent half an episode watching 3 different characters and ideas move around. For reference, episode 12 of Kaguya has 3 switches in perspectives in the span of 20 minutes. My fear is that Mamahaha will create this whiplash effect seen in some supercuts of anime. The light novel doesn't have to deal with this pacing issue because reading can be done at your own pace. The creation of visual transitions doesn't matter as much. When writing a novel, you can easily place a heading and call it a day, while in anime, this isn't really the case. Having multiple perspectives with wonky visuals can create this dissonance between the viewer and what they are watching. It becomes more of a mesh of ideas rather than something coherent. However, let's just say that Mamahaha doesn't adaptate that far and doesn't have to deal with that. Is there anything else that needs to be addressed? Well, Mamahaha lives off the 2 main leads and how they interact with the world. Mamahaha tends to switch the point of views of the characters whenever it wants an insight into how the other is reacting. Mamahaha, in some ways, has 2 different writing styles, one for each sibling. This cute attention to detail is what defines Mamahaha as not another generic rom-com. It takes care of their characters and puts them as a staple of the novel. Perfecting this is key but can easily be ruined. one easy mess up that could happen is the cliche goofy facial expressions. The step-sibling, Yume, can be animated in this way since she's more emotive than her brother. She's the sociable type that crowds herself around others. She's this popular smart kid, but on the inside, she is a bookworm at heart. On the flip side, if the stepbrother has this sort of animation, that could ruin how the viewer understands this character. The brother, Mizuto, doesn't have this second emotion or facade. This character is important, especially in the later volumes of the novel, as he is more of a static character. Characters in Mamahaha should feel realistic and intriguing. Despite Mizuto being static, that doesn't mean he's a bland character. In order to do this, Mamahaha could do internal monologue or thinking. It's nothing new and is used to get inside of characters. I mean, Hyoka does this frequently and never ceases to amaze me. However, Mamahaha could fall into the trap of overusing it and making it stale. Hyoka uses engaging visuals with great cinematography to allow seemingly boring scenes to look engaging. These mechanics in anime should have depth and nuance for picking a certain style. The process of deliberately using a technique is not something that should be picked up from a hat. Mamahaha doesn't look like a cash grab, but it sure could feel like one. Once again, at the surface, Mamahaha doesn't seem like it has much to offer, so why even bother going out of your way to create some nuance in the change of perspective? With time ticking down and only days separating me from the release date as of writing the script, I can only be scarily optimistic that Project 9 can put the love and effort I know Mamahaha can achieve. Outside looking in, I can only call the shots when they're out. Criticize and analyze all you want, but it will never change the product. I'm not wishing for Mamahaha to be the best anime ever, but I'm not really pushing for the title of this video to be true either. As higher quality anime floods the popularity charts, concepts such as mid and tier lists become more of a prevalent idea. I'm not suggesting that these things are necessarily bad, but the demand for an S-tier show is being pushed further and further. Mamahaha isn't in the talks to be one of these shows, so it falls into the latter half of the conversation. This conversation being mid and trash. Mamahaha is the frontrunner of being a show that could appear in the next Why is blank terrible, or amass a number of hihi haha grr emotes. Maybe fate has called it to be so, but it's certainly not a dumpster fire as Domestic Girlfriend. I just want to showcase and claim my ticket to an actual underdog anime that's coming out this season. From face value to underlying issues, Mamahaha is truly fighting to be the dark horse anime of the season. As much as I say I'm anticipating it to be the hated show, I actually do love it and I want it to succeed with all its glory. It truly has the ability to be a great show and I want it to be, but again, I just want to say that most people out there might not like the show and that's okay. It's just that I want to showcase why it's seen that way. Hopefully no one takes offense in this video and I hope that you actually check out Mamahaha and possibly enjoy it as well. Of course, this might not be for everyone, but I just hope that you can understand where I'm coming from and why I might actually like the show or why other people might like the show. I can't wait to see how it comes out, and of course, if you want to hear my thoughts about the show, because I'm definitely going to be watching it, then come along and I'll probably be streaming on the 6th when the episode comes out. Of course, I won't be streaming the anime, but I'll definitely be able to finish the anime and come back on the live stream and talk about my feelings. So if you're into that, please come down and stay tuned for the 6th. And anyways, this is Kevin, and I'll be signing off for today. Thank you for watching.